Really good.
Yeah.
And I just worked out before I came.
Well, there you go.
That's right.
No, that's wasn't the point of
Well,
working out.
now-
I mean, it
now
was
time
like,
to
so
get
I could,
it.
yeah, it was so,
If
I
you
could
work
lose
out,
something.
You're still burning calories.
Okay. All right, let's begin with prayer. Lord God, we give you thanks for gathering us together tonight around your word, and we ask you, Lord, to open your word to us that it might take root in our lives, and then we might be able to apply it. This we ask in your name. Amen. All right, tonight is the last class for summer break, and then we will pick up again in the fall. Let me look, because I'm taking vacation in September, so we will pick up on, I believe, October 1st in the fall. Yeah, because I have to be at the Midwest Regional the week before that, and then I'm on vacation the 2 weeks before that. So yeah, so October 1st will be our next class. So everybody who's tuning in out there, streaming, remember that October 1st is the next class. We will continue having Bible study on Sunday mornings, obviously, all summer long. Yeah.
I know, that's what I think.
I'm going to teach Bad Girls of the Bible for a few more weeks, and then Mary will take over and do, I believe it's Elijah, Mendelssohn's Elijah, I think is what she's doing, for 4 weeks, and then I'm hoping Jackson will take over for a few weeks, because he'll be here and he'd like some more teaching experience.
Is that in the morning?
Sunday mornings,
Sunday
9:15. Yeah, Sunday mornings.
Carrie, let me give it.
Yep. And so that's what we'll be doing for the Sunday classes, for the Bible classes. Right,
Okay. Right after.
right, yeah, during Sunday school.
Bad girls of the Bible.
Bad Girls of the Bible. We did Michael last week.
That was good. Yeah.
I haven't decided what we're doing this week yet.
We don't know yet.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I've had it's all I could do to just keep moving forward during last week. Yeah, right. Tonight, though, we're doing Korah's rebellion.
I've never heard of Korah.
Yeah, read Numbers 16. Numbers 16. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Fourth book of the Bible. So you've heard,
Oh, that's how you spell Korah.
yeah, you've heard of Korah. You just don't recognize it because there's quite a number of psalms, I would say maybe 7 or 8, that are attributed to the sons of Korah. And so even though Korah ran into problems, apparently his sons went on to be faithful worshipers and songwriters and psalm writers for the temple. But Korah ran into some problems. Which, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Korah with a K. Now Korah, the son of Ishar, son of Kohath, son of, there is an important one, Levi. Okay, so he's a son of Levi, and who's Levi? Who are the Levites?
The priest.
Not the priests, but the priestly class.
Oh, okay.
You know, the attenders of the temple and the worship leaders.
Considered it 12 tribes.
But not all the Levites are priests.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with a number of people of Israel, 250 chiefs of the congregation, chosen from the assembly, well-known men. They assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all in the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" All right, so here's the problem. Korah and his sons are Levites, okay? But like I said, well, we did Numbers 16, yeah. But like I said, not all Levites are priests. Only Aaron and his direct line are to be priests. So take a look, hold your finger there, and take a look back at Numbers 3. Numbers 3, let's see. Where do I want to start? Yeah. Numbers 3:5. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Bring the tribe of Levi near, and set them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister to him. They shall keep guard over him and over the whole congregation before the tent of meeting, as they minister at the tabernacle. They shall guard all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, and keep guard over the people of Israel as they minister at the tabernacle. And you shall give the Levites to Aaron, and his sons they are, wholly given to him from among the people of Israel. And you shall appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood. But if any outsider comes near, he shall be put to death. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Behold, I have taken the Levites from among the people of Israel, instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the people of Israel. The Levites shall be mine, for all the firstborn are mine. On that day that I struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I consecrated for my own all the firstborn in Israel, both of man and beast. They shall be mine, I am the Lord. Okay, so he says all the Levites are to serve the temple, but only Aaron and his sons are the priests. Okay? How does this apply today? How, and what do we do with this for moving from Old Testament into New Testament? What would we say about that? About priests and Levites, and who would be equated with the Levites, and who would be equated with the priesthood?
You mean like Christians?
Priesthood, like
Yeah.
the apostles would be the
Okay,
priesthood?
apostles would be what?
The priesthood?
Priesthood. Okay,
Yeah.
and who would be the Levites?
All of us.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we would say is we would talk about the priesthood and the priesthood of all believers. So there's the priesthood of all believers, from whence come the priests. Okay? So people always, when I'm in public, like at the wedding the other night, there were a lot of people who were not Lutheran there, and they kept calling me Father, which the boys thought was hilarious.
I did that before.
Yeah, and that's fine. Father it's a perfectly acceptable term. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not our tradition. But I mean, calling the Episcopalian priests are called Father. The Roman Catholic priests are called Father. Lutheran priests are generally called Pastor. But it's not it's just a custom. It's not. It just depends on the custom. But my boys think it's hilarious when all these other kids are calling me Father. And then they like to mock me about it, which I warned them that someday the ground is going to open and swallow them for mocking me. Yeah.
So then out of the group of believers or Christians, we have the ordained part.
Right. So we have the priesthood of all believers, who ordains some to be the priest. Okay? So that you have to be a member of the priesthood of all believers in order to be a priest. Okay? It's very similar to the Old Testament. You have the tribe of Levi, who are the priesthood of all believers who serve the temple. And then you have the priests who are appointed out of the line of Aaron. Okay? Korah was not in Aaron's line, and he decided that all Israelites had the rights to the priesthood, to be priests. Moses, what does he do? He says, "You have gone too far." Then Moses heard it. He fell on his face and said to Korah and all his company, "In the morning the Lord will show who is his and who is holy, and will bring him near to him." Okay? So why did Moses fall on his face?
Appalled.
Could be appalled. What? He tripped, yeah. Yes, he tripped. I've fallen and I can't get up. Yeah.
Approaching the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down on his knees.
It's a little, yeah, he fell on his face. He went prone. And my suspicion is, now think of Moses. Moses is the one who's called by God, right, to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt. And what is his immediate response to God when God calls him from the burning bush and says, "This is what you're going to do"?
Not me.
Not me. No. I'm just a shepherd, Lord. Yeah, I'm too old. I'm 80 years old. I'm a shepherd. I'm happy. I've done my time in Egypt. I'm not worthy. I can't even speak well, you know. And God said, "Yeah, don't worry about that, because when I call people to do what I'm calling them to do, I empower them to do what they need to do." You know. So Moses, I think he falls on his face. I think it's a sign of humility, because Korah is accusing him of coveting the priesthood, of saying, Aaron, my brother, my biological brother, okay, Aaron can be a priest, but you can't, because my line is somehow better than yours. You know, I mean, is that what he's saying? So Moses falls on his face and says, okay, in the morning the Lord will show who is his. So he's going to push it off onto God. The one whom he chooses, he will bring near to him. Do this. Take censers, Korah, and all his company, put fire in them, and put incense on them before the Lord tomorrow, and the man whom the Lord chooses shall be the Holy One. And then Moses gets a little irritated. You have gone too far, sons of Levi. And Moses said to Korah, Hear now, you sons of Levi. Is it too small a thing for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do service in the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister to them, and that he has brought you near him, and all your brothers and sons of Levi with you? And would you seek the priesthood also? Therefore it is against the Lord that you and all your company have gathered together. What is Aaron that you grumble against him? So Moses gets a little irritated here. He warns them that they have gone too far in seeking the priesthood when it had not been given to them. That's the problem. Don't seek that which is not given. He warns them that their argument is not with Aaron, and certainly not with him. It's with God.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I'm thinking here, what modern examples do we have of the church in the church, modern day examples, who seek that which is not given them?
Joel Osteen. Women.
Female pastors. What else?
People that get ordained online to do marriages.
Yeah. You know, or you know, I pay $15 and click a button on the computer to get ordained.
Yeah.
That's not only silly. I mean, it is silly, but it's not only silly. It's also offensive to God.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though, when someone says it like they're, I'm an ordained minister, like they're proud of it, like they really did something for this. Like it's like you didn't go to school for this, or like you did
Right.
nothing. Like how could? But they
Yeah.
actually, you probably, yeah.
And here's the thing: what's most important is not what amount of schooling you have, or what test you took, or anything like that. What's the only way to be an ordained minister is to have a congregation ordain you. If you don't have a congregation of God's people ordain you, you're not a pastor. Okay, that's why Jackson Jackson is not getting ordained, because he doesn't have a congregation. Okay, and now in my day, you got ordained by your home congregation, and even if you went on to further graduate school, you were ordained by the people of God. Today, what they're saying is, no, you're not ordained without a congregation. Okay, and if you serve without a congregation, you're not a pastor. So if you're a district president who doesn't have a congregation, you're not a pastor.
So how do you get a congregation? Like how is
They have to call
Jackson
you.
Okay, so
They have to call you.
Interesting.
So if if a congregation decided that they wanted to call Jackson while he was working on his master's in sacred theology, he could accept that call and be ordained. He probably won't, because he wants to be able to focus on getting the degree out of the way, and then he'll get ordained and he'll get called and ordained next spring sometime when he finishes his next degree. Yeah.
So what's the disadvantage
Of what?
of not being ordained?
Well, you're not you can't
I mean, if you don't have a congregation anyway.
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can't administer the sacraments.
Oh, you can't. Okay.
No, you
Well,
can't.
what about, so then if you had somebody who was ordained online, because I have family members who've been ordained online and perform marriages and baptisms.
That's offensive to
Are
God.
you kidding me? They do baptisms?
So that's not, does that mean that it didn't stick?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with the validity of baptism. Baptism can be, anyone here can baptize.
Baptize, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what about like marriage? I mean, is that
Well, that's
marriage
a function of the
considered-
state.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
legal
Yeah.
thing.
So, I mean, you can go to get a justice of peace, marry you. There's nothing offensive about that. That's a function of the state. Really, what I tell couples all the time is, really what we do in the sanctuary is a celebration. The actual marriage takes place when I sign the documents for the state of Illinois as an officer of the state, to say, you have promised to be married, I have witnessed it, and now I sign off and I send the paper into the secretary of whoever, Secretary of State, I think it is. That's really the marriage. Marriage is a legal statement in that case. What we do in the sanctuary is really a celebration of what God has done. And we have a rite that we use, but really what was Ruth and Boaz? You go read the book of Ruth. How did Ruth and Boaz get married? She moved in. He woke up. She was sleeping at his feet. He said, "Okay, I guess we're married." That was how did Joseph and Mary's? And this is the thing, is that young couples today don't understand that they are participating in serial marriages. Because every time they move in together and start living together as husband and wife, that's marriage. And then when they break up, that's divorce. So many young couples who are 20-some years old have already been divorced 4 or 5 times, and they don't even know it. Because no one teaches anyone that when you move in together, you're married. When you commit to one another and move in together, you're married. It doesn't matter. Should you have the official document from the state of Illinois? Yes. Fourth commandment says, obey the state, follow the laws, pay your $35 and get the document. Okay, but that's not marriage. That's legality. Okay, just like divorce is neither good nor bad. It's just a legal statement. It's a legal statement of a marriage that has been murdered. That somebody, one or both people, have killed this relationship, and God says, "Okay, well, you don't have to stay together for the rest of your lives since you hate each other, so you can have a do-over, and you can start over and do it again." Okay, that's what divorce is. Just a legal statement. Whatever caused that legal statement, there's where the sin happened, because kids will ask all the time, "Well, is it sinful that my mom's divorced?" Yes and no. I mean, there was sin that took place that ended in divorce, right? But is the fact that you're divorced a sin? No. There's nothing sinful. It's just a legal statement, Just like the legal statement of marriage doesn't make you somehow more holy. That's why we disagree with the Roman Church, that they call it a sacrament. We say no,
That's
because
what I was always trained.
yeah, right. Because they say Romans and Greeks say, Orthodox, that a sacrament is anything God commands, right? But we say, no, it's not just commanded by God, but it's with the promise of salvation. Okay, so when God gives us something, commands us to do something connected to the promise of salvation, that's a sacrament. So Lord's Supper, Holy Baptism, and Holy Absolution.
Where does he command us to get married?
He doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, he
You said
does.
He commands it. That's why they say.
Yeah, they would
but
say
Where would they
when
say that he commands it?
They would go to Genesis 2 and say where he says to Adam and Eve, "Be fruitful and multiply."
Okay.
Being raised Catholic, that's
Yeah.
what we were always taught. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
the same exact.
A man shall leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and
Different
that God instituted. I said commanded. That's too strong a word. I should have said instituted.
Okay.
Instituted. Yeah, because he doesn't command marriage. You don't. You're not sinning if you're not married. Dr. Billity will be very happy to hear that. I don't think she's on tonight, though. I think she has some meeting that she had to go to.
So would Carol.
So I should.
Yeah, and you
I
and
should
Carol,
put-
too.
Put nagging Cody then,
About what?
getting married.
No, it's a fourth commandment issue. Yeah, you should consider.
You can refer to him as being married.
Yeah, you should consider his lack of marriage the same as breaking the speed limit on the Eisenhower. It's a fourth commandment issue. You're breaking the state's law. So it is. Is it a sin? Yes. Is it? But understand that in God's eyes, and that's where the weight is. When you live together as man and wife, you are married in God's eyes. So there's no point in, like I'll ask people when they say, well, we're not ready to get married yet. Well, you're living together and you have 4 kids. So you own a house together, you own 3 cars together, and a summer property in Phoenix. So tell me, or a winter property in Phoenix. So explain to me exactly when you're going to be ready, you know. And they'll say, you know, well, you know, and they'll shuck and jive and back and forth. And the reality is usually either it's not important, you know, it's just like we just don't really care.
That's like me and Brian. Like,
Yeah.
it's like things are going just fine, you know.
And sometimes it's better than
Yeah.
But don't you kind of like, ever feel like you're forfeiting any benefits you might get out of doing it legally?
Yeah, there are some legal benefits.
Well,
yeah.
we
I
were
mean-
married for 10 years, and I always did our taxes, and I would always, because I do it still in the paper forms, the 1040, and I would do like married filed jointly, married filed separately, and I do them all separate. And there was never, you never really save that much. I mean, it's never like there. I don't know if the what's another
You know,
benefit?
if say for instance you pass away,
Right.
just
You could just
legally,
do a living will
everything
and
goes
trust.
from one spouse to the other. You can get around that by making somebody a beneficiary, but it's a lot of extra work.
I already made him beneficiary. I've
Yeah,
taken care of
but
all.
You wouldn't have to do that if you were legally married.
Yeah.
Right.
This is true. That's a good point.
So-
Yeah, there's some legal issues, and this is what I warn young ladies all the time, is because young ladies tend to be far more invested in the relationship than young men are. And young ladies do not understand because they're so in love. And you know, when they're 23 and they're all in love and everything's wonderful, they don't understand how easily men can walk away.
Yeah.
Men
That's the
can
thing,
walk.
It's so easy to end it.
Men can walk away like you're an old pair of pants.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, but that's how men are built. Is this, you know, we're able to do that. It's not so easy for women. It's not so easy. It hurts a lot more for them. And so I always tell them, I said, there's no advantage to you living together without being married. So, you know, I mean, if he's not willing to commit, if that's the issue, then get out.
You got a problem.
Yeah, get out now. Because if that's the issue, usually what I find most of the time now is it's money. Is that we don't want to get married because it's too expensive. You know, we have to have a party and blah, blah, and it is expensive. But I tell them all the time, look, I can marry you in the chapel. You pay $35 at the courthouse. Come get married. You have all the benefits of marriage. Have the party whenever you want. And if you don't want me to say anything, there was a couple here who was married for 1.5 years before anybody knew, because they needed the insurance benefits and they couldn't afford the wedding. And so, you know, one of them was losing their insurance, and they said, we don't know what we're going to do. And I said, get married. Solve the problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
was that the one that couldn't get married because of COVID?
No, that was a different
Because
one.
someone else.
Yeah, they also that was another one because of COVID.
Yeah.
They went to the courthouse and got married and then had the party later. Yeah, yeah. My brother was telling me that his daughter, her husband, if he loses his job, he's a Scotsman. If he loses his job, he loses his visa. You know, and she was complaining about that. He said, you know, I can think of a really easy way to solve that problem. I mean, marriage is legally important for people, and a lot of times people don't realize the legal importance for you know, next of kin, and I mean, just, you know, things like that. You know, who do you want making end of life decisions? And yeah, you can fill out, you know, what do you call those, medical proxy, power of attorneys and medical
Yeah, you
proxy.
do
You can
like
do
a
that.
living trust.
You can
and
do
you
all
hire
that.
a lawyer. And
But
do
I'll
it
tell you
all.
right now that the people who actually do that are far and few in between.
Yeah.
Because most people live their whole lives with their head stuck in the sand, believing they'll never die.
My
until they do.
mother-in-law, she's 75, still doesn't have anything set up.
Yep.
I know her all the time. I'm like, are you gonna? Yeah.
Yep.
It bothers me so much.
Send her to Mary Rinda.
Yeah.
Mary Rinda will put a will together for her for $600. Or
Really?
No, is it 600 or 300? I can't remember.
I
No,
think 300.
300.
But
I think. Yeah.
that's been 26 years
Yeah.
ago.
I don't remember what she charged us, but it was. I think it was 600 for both of
Who's
us.
Mary Renda?
Mary Rinda,
Our
tall.
lawyer.
Tall, short, red hair.
Yeah.
Okay.
She dresses like a lawyer.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, she does a lot of
Yeah.
estates and stuff like that
Okay.
in her practice. But yeah, any attorney can do it for you. You know, I mean, it's not an expensive thing, and it's so helpful to the family because
Yeah, that's what I tell my mother-in-law. It's like, you didn't, no offense to anyone, but she didn't send her kids to college. You know, you didn't, and so you don't really have much at all to give. I mean, she still has a huge mortgage on her house because she keeps refinancing, and it's like, don't you want to leave something to your kids? I mean, like the 20,000 they might get a piece. You know, like you're gonna make us hire lawyers and go to probate and basically just have it all be a wash. I don't know. I just find it so selfish.
Yep. People don't want to face death.
When my mom was dying, she didn't have a will, and my sister wrote one and got my mom to sign it when she was
I don't want that.
dying. And
Did
then
it work?
Well, then she got a lawyer to notarize it and do it. It went through.
Mm-hmm.
It did. Okay.
You
You
might
have to
look
get
for
it
that.
notarized by someone that will do
Yeah.
it for you. And
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Margaret will notarize things.
other things, we're talking about
Can
people
I ask you
who.
one question?
Yeah.
based on that?
Mhm.
You were saying that it's offensive to God for these people to do baptisms and marriages that are just ordained at these little.
When they call themselves ordained, yeah. That's
Okay.
offensive to God.
Okay, because I was like, if you just said that anyone could do it, then why does it? But it's just
Yeah.
the fact they say they're ordained.
Yeah, they have no business announcing that they're deciding their ordination is something that is given to you. It's not something that you announce for
Where
yourself.
does it say in the Bible that ordination is given to? Is this from this passage? Is that the main
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say you have to read into it because we use the word ordination. That's not a word that the Bible uses. Okay, so ordination is not, we call it ordination, but at one point where Jesus looks at his apostles and breathes on them and gives them the Holy Spirit and says, whoever sins you forgive or forgiven, whoever sins you retain or retained, that's the institution of the holy ministry.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's that?
That involves the keys,
Right, the keys, here are the keys of the kingdom, whatever,
the office of the keys.
yeah, the office of the keys, whatever sins you forgive or forgiven. You know, that's the apostolic succession. You've heard of that? You know, that's the apostles were the first pastors of the church. Then they ordained that, and all it means by ordained is set aside people to be the next group, and then the next group, and so forth and so on, goes on down the line. So you can't find a place in Scripture where it talks about ordination, because there was no such thing as ordination in the sense that we use it. But the sense of pulling somebody from the body to be the pastor, that's what ordination is.
Okay.
So
what would you say? Like, 'cause I have this friend who always brags that she's an ordained minister. So next time I want to give it to her, really. And so okay, that's offensive to God, and what should I say?
well, number one, if it's a she,
It is a she.
then you would say,
Well, it's a transsexual too.
well, okay. we're covering all the bases here. Because that's the next thing on my list is all this the gender dysphoria. When you are given a gender, that is a gift from God. Okay, that's a gift from God. God gives you the gender that you are. God didn't make a mistake. He didn't say, "Oops, oh, you were supposed to be female and I made you male. Sorry." Now, oh golly, I forgot that one part. Oops. No, that God gives you the gender that you have. And if you decide you're going to change what God has done, that's offensive to God.
Okay.
So that's another example of people who take what they want
Yeah.
instead of accepting the gifts that they're given.
Yeah.
So the office of the holy ministry is given by God through a congregation of people. Okay? A congregation calls you to be their pastor. You are not a member of the priesthood outside of a call. So some guys, I'll go into I'll visit guys. I don't have anything on my office on my walls because I just never hung anything up. But some guys have their diplomas all hung up on their walls, and I always remind them that their diplomas, all right, fine. I mean, it says you did the amount of work. I mean, all a diploma means is you did the amount of work to get that degree. I don't care what degree it is. There's a certain amount of work you have to do. Anybody can do it unless you're mentally challenged or something. But I mean, any normal person can do the amount of work. Everybody can get a PhD if they really want one. You just have to do the work to get and write the paper, and there you go. What's the important document is what's called the diploma of vocation. That's the call document. That's the call document from the congregation saying we want you to be our pastor. That's the document that matters. That's what makes you a pastor. And so when you say I'm ordained online, there's no congregation that called you. There's no act of God working through a group of people. You're just announcing, I've decided to take this gift for myself. Okay? You can't do that.
So where, once again, can I say like the biblical argument? Because that always works the best. when you actually.
Or the backup.
Yeah, well, it's like, come on,
Yes.
you can't argue with this.
Right.
So when I say you have to be ordained, a congregation has to call you to be their minister. No one's called you, and I can prove it by this part in the Bible. So what's the
Numbers.
part in the Bible?
That's what we're reading.
Okay, so that's
This is-
that's what I would
One
use.
spot. You could use that. Yeah, you could use it. I'll give you a document.
Okay,
This is more complex than just that. But yeah,
Okay.
I'll give you a document after this, and
Okay,
you
good.
can go home and read it
I
and
will.
study it and be ready for bear.
you ready for
Then
So-
let us know how it goes.
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
October 1st, yeah. Out in church sometime.
Yeah, I'll see you.
So as another one, identifying as something you're not. I don't care what that means. I am not a black Puerto Rican lesbian woman. Yeah. I can say that I am all day long, and I'm still not that. This business of I can identify. I was going to do that. Identify as a black Puerto Rican lesbian woman, so that I could run for the governor of Illinois and maybe win.
That's funny.
I think I'd have a good chance. Yeah.
Well, you have more time since you're giving up your,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
right. Yeah, I'll have more time to run for governor now. Did you hear who the Libertarians nominated?
I
No.
don't even want
A openly gay black Marxist man
Oh.
is now the Libertarian presidential candidate, which is wonderful because that won't take any votes away from
Trump.
anyone else. That's,
An older woman, I thought it was an older woman that was.
no,
White
That's
woman.
probably a guy that
no,
Supposedly she
I'm
was the
surprised.
libertarian
That's-
candidate for last few elections.
no. This is a new guy. They at their convention, Trump addressed their convention,
Right.
and they booed him,
Yeah.
and his answer was, "Yeah, that's fine. If you want to lose, just keep booing.
Yeah.
You can have your 3% that you get every election. If you want to get on board a winning team, then get on board."
Yeah.
Which I thought was a brilliant answer.
Yeah.
Whether you like the guy or not, that was a
Yeah.
brilliant
Yeah.
answer. A way to handle being booed.
Yeah.
That's fine. So identifying as something you're not. Again, flying in the face of created order of God telling you, I have created you to be this, and you have said, no, I don't. I identify as this, and I don't care whether that means sexually or even like these furries who identify as animals, and
Oh yeah.
whatever you want to talk about identifying as. Which reminds me of a cartoon I saw today where there's two unicorns talking on Noah's Ark, and one of them says, "Hi, my name's Ben," and the other one says, "Oh, my name's Robert," and then they say, "Oh crap," as they realize.
Yeah.
And then another one that came to my mind was congregations firing their pastor or cutting his pay until he's forced to move on. That's a popular thing to do. If you don't like your pastor, is you have a voters meeting and you vote to rescind his call.
The American way.
Yeah, that's the exact attitude.
Yeah.
Is that if we don't like him, we called him, we can rescind his call. No, God called him through you. You were the conduit. You're not the actor. You cannot do this, and yet they do. And if you tell them they can't, then they'll just keep cutting his pay until he has no choice but to move on. Danya asked me one time. She says, "If you had a congregation that just kept cutting your pay, what would you do?" And I said, "I'd go get another job
Yeah.
and keep serving him as their pastor."
Isn't that illegal though? I mean, I work for the Department of Employment Security, and I mean, you can't pay someone less. There's a process you have to go through to do that. You have to do the same job.
In general, and I mean I don't know specifically the laws that apply here, but in general, the feds stay out of the church,
Yeah.
and they would say that's church
Oh,
law.
got it. Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
this kind of takes us to another level too, where you start talking about, is a church a family or is it a business?
Right.
And how do you run a church?
Yeah,
And that's the business way of running it.
Right.
It's not the family way.
and that's what they'll say. What I love here, I don't love hearing it, but I hear it all the time. Pastor, it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
When you start cutting people's salaries, that's personal. It personally affects them. I understand if you have no other choice. If you have no other choice and that's all you can do, you can say, "Look, Pastor, it's down to keeping the lights on or lowering your salary. We don't have any other choice." Okay, that I understand.
Yeah.
But please don't tell me it's not personal.
Yeah.
You're consciously making a choice to lower my standard of living so that you can do something else,
Yeah,
whatever.
or
I mean, it might be something very necessary, but let's not pretend that it's, well, it's not nothing personal. You can live without. It's not personal. Drives me nuts. I hear that all the time from congregations. Well, it's not personal. We just don't have the money to pay him anymore. Really? Well, maybe you should give more. Yeah. I
But
mean,
that's not even the same thing though. It's not like they don't have the money because they're out of money. It's they have an agenda.
generally,
But
but that's not what
they're-
they say.
Right, but they'll, deep
You-
down, that's what they're really doing.
You can only
It's-
judge people based on what their words are. So I don't judge beyond that. I judge only their words. And so they tell me, we have no other choice. And I say, okay, well, let's look at some other options. Here, let's look at what other choices you might have that you're not seeing. And then every choice I lay before them, they say, well, no, that won't work. That won't work. We tried that 75 years ago. That didn't work then. Yeah.
The only place where I excuse me, get confused is, what if the person, you feel like he's not doing his job,
Mhm.
not performing all his duties?
Mhm.
I
Then we have
imagine
we have a
there's other
system.
steps you need to take
Right.
then.
We have a system
go
for
through
that.
the church,
Right.
and somebody needs to come and.
So the first thing you do is you go to your circuit visitor
Yeah.
and you say, we have this problem, pastors, let's say not making calls. Grandma Schmidt's been in the hospital for 6 weeks. He has not been to see her once. And we've asked him 17 times to go see her, and he refuses to go see her. So you go talk to your circuit visitor. The circuit visitor comes, talks to the pastor, says what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Works with them, helps them make adjustments that need to be made. Circuit visitor doesn't work, then it goes bumps up to the vice president.
Yeah.
Vice president comes in and says, okay, look, this is serious. You need to get your butt out there. You have to make these calls. That doesn't work, then the bishop comes in. Bishop comes in and eventually says either you start doing your job or I'm going to put you on restricted status. Okay, which means that you can't get a call, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, and he may, worst come to worst, may remove you from the ministry. He has that power. The bishop only has power over congregations as a whole, not individual members, but the congregation as a whole, or church workers. Because actually specifically pastors, not teachers. Pastors are members of synod, and congregations are members of synod, and that's who the bishop has power over. Okay? And so, worst come to worst, the bishop can come in and remove the pastor. Most congregations are not willing. Frequently, congregations. I'm not saying most. Frequently, congregations are not willing to do the work to get through that process. They just want to fix it right now, and they think fixing it means getting rid of the pastor. And what I've said to many congregations is, maybe that pastor is here because you're here for him. Maybe it's not about you. Maybe you're here to give him something, to help him somehow. Okay, that maybe God wants him to go through this process to learn something, and he needs to go through the process. That's why I think the call process is so important. It's why I always follow the process. Anytime I receive a call or even an interview, I always take it very seriously. Even if I look at it and think, this is not where I want to go. I do not want this, not one little bit. I still take it seriously and go through the process because it's not always about me. It may be about those people who need to hear something that they can hear from me that they couldn't hear from their previous pastor. Like for instance, I got a interview from a congregation one time, long time ago, from Iowa. And they were interviewing me and they said they don't understand. They have called, 4 or 5 times and they've been returned. The call's been returned every time. They're a great congregation. It's a beautiful place out in western Iowa. It's a real pretty area around Storm Lake. Gorgeous place. And they just don't understand. And they're paying $12,000 a year and they have a parsonage. I think I might know why
That's why.
the call's getting returned. And
It's great scenery.
I was able to tell them. I said, $12,000 a year is a ridiculous salary. No
It's
man,
not a salary.
yeah, no man is going to come to serve you unless he has unless he's independently wealthy, or he happens to have a wife who's a doctor or a lawyer or something that he doesn't need. And there are guys like that I have a friend whose wife is an ICU charge nurse, and he intentionally takes calls that can't pay anything because they don't need money, and so whatever they pay is fine. But though you're limiting when you're only paying $12,000 a year, you're really limiting the pool from which you can call, and they were calling people from big congregations. I mean, I had a congregation of or whatever it was, 300-400. You know, why would I go to this little place? I mean, it was ridiculous, you know. But that was.
How are congregations supposed to know what you just said?
I'm sorry. What do you mean?
Or when you said you call your circuit visitor and then it goes to the vice president, how do congregations know that they should do that if there's a problem with their pastor?
We knew that.
Yeah.
officially.
I guess the
Mary
Well,
Linda was our
president-
lawyer
Why
at the
did you
time.
have
Or
a pastor
executive
you got rid
director.
of?
Yeah,
There was? What happened?
I
I don't
mean,
even know
he's
the
gotta be
details.
thinking along the lines
I
of,
was on the
well,
board.
what do I do
Oh,
next?
so you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Which means he's gotta call somebody, you know.
But the congregation
Why was it
wasn't really
sad?
very well
I
informed
was
of
sad
anything
because I-
that was
You liked him?
how to help us get through it. That I mean, I don't feel like it was general knowledge.
So you have been, as a congregation, have been fairly well neglected over the past 20 years because your pastor has always either been the circuit visitor or the vice president. So they're not worried about it.
Right.
In another congregation, the circuit visitor should be visiting. So you should meet your circuit visitor, and he should be able to talk to you. He should come to an occasional congregational meeting, for instance, or if he can get to. Obviously, the circuit visitors have their own congregations. So, but if he can get there on a Sunday morning, he should come to a Sunday morning from time to time. Every congregation in the English district is visited by the district at least once every 3 years. So once every 3 years, we have an official visit by the district. Okay. Again, like I said, you've been relatively neglected because your pastor has been the circuit visitor, and then he was elected to vice president.
But
So
even before you, I just felt like there was a very big
yeah, and
feeling of helplessness. Of,
Yeah.
like somebody should have guided.
yeah, and that may have been. There are times when congregations get neglected for various reasons,
I
but
think our circuit visitor was from Messiah
You know,
when
Oh,
we
I know
went
what
through
that
that.
is.
if I was,
Oh, we
if
do
I was
have
the
some.
director though, you know,
That all
of
makes
the
sense.
council
Now,
or
why would we
whatever,
Mhm.
and we were having a problem and I didn't know where to go, the first thing I do is pick up the phone and call the district.
right.
You know,
And that's
I say,
generally how
tell
it
me what I
works.
gotta do. Oh,
Yeah.
you got a circuit guy that you gotta get in touch with.
9 times out of 10, that's how it works. Is
I
they
mean-
call the district headquarters, and then
And then you gotta have good communication within the congregation, like you
Right.
gotta let people know that what the procedure.
So when I was a circuit visitor, if I got a call, I would get a call from the district that said, you know, congregation XYZ is having a problem. Okay, what's the problem? And they give me the rough sketch. So then I would call the pastor and I would say, we hear that we're getting some grumblings about this, that, or the other thing. I need to set up a time that I can come and meet the congregation. And so then I would go and I would visit with them either on a Sunday morning or on the fellowship hour or at a congregational meeting or something. We would set up something that I could go visit with them and start talking to them about what we can do about this. And I would meet with the pastor and the congregation separately, and then I would meet with them together. And I've done that. Well, I've done that both as vice president and as a circuit visitor. That's my modus operandi. Is I meet first with the pastor, then I meet with the congregation, and then I meet with them both together. And in general, I please nobody. So
But that's when you know you got a good deal.
yeah, right.
Right?
Nobody's happy.
No one's
Okay, I can
happy,
go
yeah.
home now.
911, that's your emergency.
Yeah, yeah. Because generally people want an easy fix, and there's no easy fix. Generally, it means that both sides have to bend, and have to figure out, how are we going to solve this problem. What I tell congregations all the time is this is a marriage. It's a marriage made by God, and there's no out. So your choice is to spend the next X number of years together being miserable, or to spend the next number of years together being happy. Okay, there's no out.
Yeah.
So miserable or happy, which do you prefer? And some people can get on board with that, and some people never can, because they want it their way or they're not happy. And that's just the way some human beings are.
Well, there is kind of a line sometimes between relationships. And when you cross that line, you have these irreconcilable differences.
Sometimes, yeah,
And
sometimes.
it's like, even if, you think you got it straightened out, but you've already done the damage.
Right,
and
And-
now it's hard to come back.
Right, and in those cases, what we do is we work very hard to get that person a call.
A call, yeah.
Yeah, and get them out of there.
But then, like you said, the congregation, like, what can we get out of this?
Right.
So that's the part that I think would have really been helpful is, you know, helping.
What
us
can you learn?
Yeah, why is God leaving this person here so long?
Right.
What is he trying to teach us as a congregation? Not just
Right.
like, oh, get rid of him so we can go on about our sinful lives. Let's,
Right.
like, work together and figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's not a wise congregation spends their time figuring out what went wrong,
Yeah.
you know, and
It would've been-
and why it went wrong. And it's not always because he was terrible. That's the other thing I tell
Obviously.
congregations when I always get a small group comes to me and says we need to get rid of this guy, and I always tell them first thing I tell them is look, here's the reality. In every congregation, 10% of the people think the pastor is Satan. 10% of the people think the pastor is Jesus, and 80% of the people couldn't care less. They just want a sermon and someone to visit them when they're sick. That's the reality. So when you get rid of a pastor, you're going to tick off a lot more people than you're going to make happy. Because that 10% who thinks he's Jesus thinks you have just crucified Jesus again. The 10% that thinks he's Satan is thrilled, and the 80% is just a little irritated because now we got a different guy in the pulpit every week.
Yeah.
You're right, they're both,
Yeah.
you know.
And they're not happy.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to make a congregation happy by getting rid of the pastor.
People go to see the pastor, you know?
Well, the reality is that you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But that's the reality is that people do build relationships. Oh, I thought you had a little gas over there, Jamie. Yeah.
A little bird.
Yeah.
But what happened though way back when was meant to be the way it's worked out. We have
Right.
you now, you know. It was
Well, God works all
meant
things
to
for the
be.
good of those who love Him. Yeah.
So
You can always count on the fact, and that's another thing I tell congregations is right now is a bad time. Right now it's a hard time, it's an upsetting time, but it's important to remember that God works through these times. You know, and it might not be about you. It might be teaching the pastor something. You know, the pastor might be learning and growing through this. It's not always about. Hopefully, you both are, but you know, at least somebody should. Yeah. So Moses says to Korah, let's see, in verse 8. Let's see. Hear now, you sons of Levi. Is it too small a thing? I think I already did this, didn't I? Where did I stop?
Moses was very angry. 15.
Let's say 12. Okay. And Moses sent a call to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and they said, "We will not come up." Stupid. Is it a small thing that you have brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey? Wait, where's the land flowing with milk and honey? They're calling Egypt the land flowing with milk and honey now. Is
They
it?
used to be slaves?
Yeah, they were slaves for 400 years. Yeah, you've brought us up out of the land of flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you must also make yourself a prince over us. Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, as you promised, nor given us the inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up. And Moses was very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not respect their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, and I have not harmed one of them." All right, so now they turn on Moses. He promised to bring them into a land flowing with milk and honey, and he hasn't. They accuse him of favoritism because he's choosing his brother Aaron. They're saying, look, we have eyes. We see what's going on. That's the whole thing about poking out eyes there. We're not blind. You're choosing your family to be in charge, and you think you're putting yourself over us. And then Moses does a little humor here. And in case you missed it, that was Hebrew sarcasm. I have not taken one donkey from them. What is that? What's he making reference to? Yeah. I've not taken one donkey from them. Remember that. Think of the 9th and 10th commandments.
Coveting,
Yeah, coveting what?
Neighbor stuff?
Yeah, servants, maid servants.
servants,
Nor
animals.
animals. Yeah, your donkeys. That's in the commandment. And Moses says, "Make it." This is Hebrew humor. I haven't taken one donkey from them.
That's
So
probably the lowest of the animals.
they would have heard the sarcasm in Moses' voice at this point. So, moving on, and Moses said to Korah, "Be present, you and all your company, before the Lord, you and they and Aaron tomorrow, and let every one of you take his censer and put incense on it. And every one of you bring before the Lord his censer, 250 censers. You also, and Aaron each his censer." So every man took his censer and put fire in them, and laid incense on them, and stood at the entrance of the tent of meeting with Moses and Aaron. Then Korah assembled all the congregation against them at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the congregation. So that is Kibod Yahweh, the glory of the Lord. The term refers to weight or weightiness of something, kabod, and thereby its impressive appearance or honor. Moses introduces the expression during the Exodus, in Exodus 16:7, to contrast the Lord's majesty with that of Pharaoh in Egypt. It comes to describe, this is out of the study Bible, it comes to describe the visible manifestation of God's presence in the cloud and fire of Exodus. Remember the pillar of cloud, pillar of fire. It is the splendor of God's presence that belongs now to believers in the promise, and that by his advanced preparation will be revealed to them and in them. Okay, so that's what the glory of the Lord they're facing. And the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, "Separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." And they fell on their faces and said, "O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and will you be angry with all the congregation?" And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Say to the congregation, get away from the dwelling of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." Then Moses rose and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. And he spoke to the congregation, saying, "Depart, please, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest you be swept away with all of their sins." So they got away from the dwelling of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the door of their tents, together with their wives, their sons, and their little ones. And Moses said, "Hereby you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all of these works, and that it has not been of my own accord. If these men die, as all men die, or if they are visited by the fate of all mankind, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord creates something new, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into Sheol, then you shall know that these men have despised the Lord." And as soon as he had finished speaking all of these words, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households and all the people who belonged to Korah and all their goods. So they and all that belonged to them went down alive into Sheol, and the earth closed over them, and they perished from the midst of the assembly. And all Israel who were around them fled at their cry, for they said, "Lest the earth swallow us up." And fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men offering incense. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Tell Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, to take up the censers out of the blaze. Then scatter the fire far and wide, for they have become holy. As for the censers of these men who have sinned at the cost of their lives, let them be made into hammered plates, as a covering for the altar, for they offered them before the Lord, and they became holy. Thus shall be a sign for the people of Israel." Okay, so what happens?
Why did he kill all of them? I thought Moses asked him not to kill them.
Well, they did, only the Korah and his family and Dathan and all those. Everybody else fled.
Yeah, I know, but then it said the Lord consumed the 250 men offering the incense. And
Yeah.
fire came out, so he killed
Also,
them.
people of Korah and
They
were offering
So
incense
whoever
on
was
behalf of them.
following them.
Whoever was following Korah,
Okay, got it. I understand.
yeah, they were all consumed. Yeah. The moral of the story is God doesn't play. When God says do this, He means do this. And what's more, what I warn people about all the time is attacking God's plan. It's one thing to be ignorant of God's plan. Another thing to openly attack God's plan. Attacking God's plan is incredibly dangerous. you are playing with literal fire, because God doesn't play. He will not put up with people destroying his work. So these people who attack the church, either openly from a perspective of paganism or from within, with false doctrine, are on very dangerous ground. You know, what's that?
Look at Paul. Saul.
Yeah, struck blind.
Yeah.
Right, struck blind. They're on very dangerous ground, and Korah is a great example of that. What goes on? We're not going to finish it tonight, but if you finish the chapter, the people rise up against Moses again and complain again, and then God sends a plague, and is going to wipe the rest of them out. And Aaron rushes in with the incense and gets them to repent of their sin, and as they repent, they are healed of the plague. Right? So at this point, we're not done yet, because then there's another. They just keep on and on and on, rebelling against God, which is what we're supposed to take from this is an understanding of that's the cycle of humanity. Humanity rebels against God, okay? And as God's children, we have to be aware of that and not be so dang naive. You know, when we think, oh, well, you know, the female pastor down the road, she's got a good heart, she's really nice, and we really, no, she's an apostasy of the church. That is wrong. Okay, well, that, there's a pastor, a Lutheran pastor, not Missouri Synod, in the city, who's a drag queen, and he does his children's messages in drag.
Disgusting.
Yeah, and there's many people who are like, well, to each his own. We're not going to judge. Well, I mean, this libertarian guy. I can't think of his name right now, but the guy they just nominated for president in the Libertarian Convention, he defends drag queens reading to children because that's just an expression of their art. It's not a sexual issue; it's an expression of their art.
So does the Downers Grove Public Library.
Yeah. So we have to be aware that there are people out there who look very nice, who are attacking the church. Yeah, and just because they look nice and speak nice words doesn't make them acceptable. And we need to stand up as Christians and say, no. And for heaven's sakes, if we can't stand up any other time, at least stand up in November and say, I am not voting for a person who openly betrays my Christian values. Okay? I'm not saying that either candidate is perfect. I'm not saying that the libertarian candidate is perfect. I'm not saying we're not going to find a perfect candidate. But all we can do is find a candidate that comes as close as possible to our values, okay, as Christians. That's all we can do. And I agree, I commiserate. Why can't we find a nice Lutheran man to run? I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, throw him
Some in Congress, however,
Yeah.
there are very few.
Well, I mean, we had Stormin Norman. Schwarzkopf was a solid Missouri Synod Lutheran. I wish he had run.
Yeah.
He wouldn't run, and I don't blame him. I mean, he had a whole military career, and he was like,
Yeah,
"I'm done."
yeah.
And but he was. I mean, we've had some great Missouri Synod Lutheran people, but they've never made it that high.
No.
Senators as high as they've ever gotten, or in Stormin Norman's case, it was five-star general, 4-star general. I don't remember, whatever he was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand. There's no perfect choice. But for heaven's sakes, when you go to the polls in November, look and ask yourself the question: who is going to best represent the values that God teaches? That's all you can do, and pray, and that's why we pray every week for the president. Is for that reason.
God, sometimes the first time I came here, when you said Joseph, I was like, I almost like, but
We pray
I've
for
gotten
him.
used to it.
We pray for
I
him.
often wonder, a first-time participant, how they feel.
Oh,
Yeah.
it shocked me. I wanted to immediately let out like a but I didn't, and now I got used to it. And I do see the point of it. It's not your.
We pray for the man who holds
Yeah,
the
I
office,
know. Yeah.
regardless of whether we like him or not.
Right.
Yep.
Same thing with our bishops. Oh, by the way, our bishop is took a call. Did you hear that?
No, he did take this seminary call.
Mm-hmm. He is now president. He will be president of Concordia University System, and Pastor Jeffrey Miskus will be our new bishop.
And how's that gonna?
He's a good guy,
Okay.
very good guy. Yeah,
I was gonna say, we'll miss him as bishop, but I'm sure he will do well
he will do.
because the Concordia system is going downhill.
The Concordia system needs him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We can live with that. He has set us on a very good foundation.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, he needs to move on and do this because he can save the Concordia system with his financial acumen.
From where did the new bishop come?
He is our first Canadian bishop.
Oh,
Yeah, he comes from Toronto,
okay.
a suburb of Toronto, Mississauga. I think it's Mississauga. Yeah, but it's a large church in Toronto, and very good guy. A little younger than me, older than the bishop, but younger than me. Very good guy. He's first vice president, and so he will be elevated to bishop August 1st, and I will finally make it to second vice president. Woohoo! It's been a long climb from fourth, and I parked at third for a long time. The only way I ever make it up the line is when someone ahead of me leaves.
And then you're leaving.
Right, and then I will retire
Yeah.
next summer. This will be my
Really?
last year of
Not from pastor.
not from being a pastor,
Oh, good.
You got a little pain.
from being vice president. Yeah, I'm retiring from being vice president.
You know, they made a comment in here, use this word censored. What's a censored?
Oh, a censer, good. Yeah, thank you. It holds the incense. Yeah, it holds the incense. Yeah, if I had my way, you would know what that is, because I would use incense, but I don't have my way, and there's too many people who whine. I think it's great. They use incense at Advent Lutheran Church in Zionsville, where we were for the conference, and it was so neat because all through the day you could still smell the incense in the air. You know, it wasn't real strong, but they burned the incense for every service, and it's one more thing that works a different sense. I mean, our sense of smell already works. If you take a person who's a church person, blindfold them and bring them into a sanctuary and ask them where they are, 9 times out of 10 they can figure it out. The smell of candle wax and wood, and it smells like a church. But the incense really nails that sense of smell. But too many people whine.
When I remember buying a house when I was younger, and my dad rushed Orthodox. Had the priest come out and bless the house.
Right.
Walk through the house. Yeah, it smells good.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love the symbolism of the smoke rising up like prayers.
Yeah.
It's really very cool.
Yeah, he's mumbling something in Russian the whole time,
Well, I don't mumble in Russian. I mumble in English.
But it was cool.
Okay, let's close with the blessing. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift his countenance upon us and give us peace. Amen. All right, ending live. Before you say anything bad.